Today we're going to be back with lesson 2.6, graphing on the coordinate plane. In the previous video we focused on y-intercept and what y-intercept is. In this video we're going to focus on slope. It's video 3, so let's take a look at what is slope. Okay, so if you'll recall, in slope-intercept form was the equation y is equal to mx plus b. And m is the slope. So we generally use the letter m to describe slope. Now what is slope? Slope tells you how much the y's change, the change in the y's, over how much the x's change. So the y's, remember, is the vertical axis, which goes up and down right here. And so it's the change in the y's over how much it goes left and right, which is the change in the x's. So the slope of an equation, or the slope, is located beside the x. It's being multiplied times the x in slope-intercept form. Now, so slope is interpreted as the difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values. Now, when we graph this, we need to know how much to move up and how much to move over. So it's always useful to have it in fraction form. So if you have a whole number, you might want like 3. Oops, let me grab my pen again. Okay, like if you had the whole number 3, then if you'll remember, we want it in fraction form, so we would do 3 over 1. The 3 being the rise, and the 1 being the run. So, slope, we're going to call a lot of different names in this course, and you may see it in many courses, but we may call it slope, we may call it rate of change, we may call it the average rate of change, the rate of increase, the rate of decrease, we may call it the steepness of the line, we may call it the cost per unit, we may call it m, or the change in the y's over the change in the x's, or you may call it the speed. So there's lots of different names. That by no means is everything, but that's a few names that you may hear in this course. So let's go on down to the next thing. Okay, so this is back with the equation that we had from example 2. Okay, the numerator of the slope tells how many we're going to move up, how many units we're going to move up or down. Okay, and if it's positive, we would go up. And if it's negative, that makes sense that we would go down. So this one's being negative, so that means that it tells me that I will go down 2 units. And the denominator, which is the bottom number, tells you how you go left and right. If the bottom number is positive, you'll go to the right, and if it's negative, you'll go to the left. Now, so let's go back and review. There's the 2 parts that we have right here. The b, oops, let me grab my pen. Okay, the b is 4, that's the y-intercept, and the m, and the m value is right here in front of the x, that's the m, and the m is a negative 2 over 3. So if you recall from example 2, the last video, you have to start with the y-intercept. And the y-intercept on this problem is 0, 4. Because remember, the x is where it crosses the y-axis. The x value is 0, and the y value is 4. So we'll go up here and put a point at 0, 4. Then from that point, this m value tells me how I move from that point. Do I go up? Do I go down? Do I go left? Do I go right? So the y value, the rise, is negative 2. That means we go down 2, 2 units. And the x value is positive. The run is positive. So we would go to the right 2 units, and we would put a dot there. Now go ahead and fill in as many of those following that pattern as you can that our graph will allow, so that we have a good line that we can draw. So not only do we go this direction, our line will continue on to the left also, but when you're going in reverse, so we would go up 2 and to the left 3. so that it stays in the same pattern. So from this one, it is down 2 and to the right 3. So we follow that pattern. Now the last step in graphing your line is we would connect the dots, and I'll try to do that with my line tool here. So you would connect those dots. And this is not the only solution. There's more, so we would take and we would put arrows on the end of that line to show that it continues. That's not where it stops. Okay? And remember from the first video, every single point on that line, no matter where it is a solution to this equation. Okay? All right, so let's go to the next slide. And in the next slide, there's a couple of things that's very useful that you need to go back and check when you're looking at these. That if you have a line that is positive, when you read it from left to right, it will go uphill. So our little slope guy over here can help you remember that. So if it's a positive slope, it should be going uphill. So always go back and double check your answer or your graph when you're finished. If the line is negative, if the slope is negative, it should be going downhill if the slope is negative. If you have a line that has a zero slope right here, it is a horizontal line. If you have a line that has an undefined slope, then the slope is, the line is a vertical line. Remember, if you have a zero slope, that means that you would have, grab my pen here, you would have 0 as how much your y's change. The x value can be any number, but 0 divided by 3 is equal to 0. So anything that has 0 in the numerator has a 0 slope. And an undefined slope, if you'll remember on that one, an undefined number is you cannot divide by 0. So if you have any number over 0, that is undefined. Okay, so that means that your x values were the same, undefined there. Okay. All right, so let's go. And on this slide, you have 2 U-tries. Take a minute, make sure you identify the y-intercept, making sure that the 0 is in the x value, and then identify the slope. Remember, that's the number in front of the x. Do not put an x with your slope. It is the number in front of x. The x itself is part of an ordered pair, so it's just the number in front of x. And then take a few minutes and plot these 2 U-tries and check your answer, and then come back and join us for video 4.